Welcome to another edition of webinar series on MBA Rendezvous, which we conduct with academic leaders and industry veterans. As we all know, the new education policy has been released on 29th July 2020. So to understand the impact and implications of the new policy on higher education and to understand the nitty-gritties of the new policy, we requested Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh to share his views on the policy and what impact does he think would it bring in higher education. So today we have with us Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh, Director, MDI Gurgaon, to share his views on the new education policy. Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh is engaged for more than 3 decades in academics in the field of postgraduate teaching in management, training, research, consulting, and academic administration. He has unique blend of experience, having served in academics in all type of institutions: State University, Ujjain and Kanpur, Central University, IGNOU, New Delhi, National Institute, NITI Mumbai, and Indian Institute, IIM Indore. He operates in the field of organizational behavior and human resource management, Indian ethos, and managerial values and skills. Dr. Singh is PhD in management from Vikram University, Ujjain, postgraduate in personal management and industrial relations from Xavier Institute of Social Service, Ranchi, and MA in economics from Ranchi University. Dr. Singh has published numerous research papers, 2 books, 1 booklet in the field of managing people. Dr. Singh has been member of various academic and government bodies. Among various responsibilities in the field of academic administration, he has also worked as director in charge of IIM Indore and chairperson of academic committee of IIM Sambalpur. His one of the favorite quotes is, "We are always preparing to live, but never living." A very warm welcome to you, sir. I now request Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh to share his initial observations and what, according to him, are the hits and misses of the new policy, and then we will deep dive into specific aspects of the in detail. Over to you, sir.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me try to paint the overall picture of this new education policy 2020. Policies in 1968, then 86, then revised in 1992, and then now we have 2020 education policy. If we take the broader framework of this policy is rotating around 3 or 4 basic philosophies. Number 1, it is talking about flexibility. Flexibility of getting educated by having various kinds of combinations of various subjects. That is one kind of flexibility. And next kind of flexibility is that at the stage there is exit door open, and gracefully if you exit at one stage from education system, you will be given certain certificate or diploma or advanced diploma or graduation with research, followed by, of course, PhD or post-graduation programs and PhD. So flexibility is one philosophy on which this has been created. Second philosophy is about overall integrated development of personality of students. Say, for example, when we were students in 1973 in class 8, I had to choose between science and art. And there was a great wall, like in one time in Europe after the Second World War, a concept was developed that iron wall, or there is some chain which is dividing both the Europe in 2 parts, Eastern and Western, as Churchill had said. And similarly, we still today, we are actually categorized under various very stronghold of subjects like arts, commerce, science, and social science, humanities, engineering, medicine, everything. Here, one flexibility has been given that one can choose a blending of one's own choice. For example, earlier you could not study 2 P's together, that is philosophy and physics. If you have to study physics, you cannot study philosophy. If you have to study philosophy, you cannot study physics. If you study chemistry, you cannot study sociology. If you study political science, you cannot study botany. But this kind of flexibility has been allowed. So there is another kind of flexibility. The another dimension of this new education policy is that it is talking about developing indigenous world level knowledge repository. And we can say that one step towards, or a humble step, of course, it has to be seen that if we are able to implement well, only then we can claim. But if we are able to implement this policy in a spirit with certain modifications, it will help to take one good step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. Because when we talk about developing research repository, which has to be implemented at the home soil, and the research also has to be originally grown from home, because some researches which have universal application. For example, physics applied in India is same as physics applied in Mexico. So we must allow any knowledge developed anywhere on this earth to come inside our country, and our doors and windows must remain open. But when we go for indigenous research, it also should come to the level of world standard, so that everyone is equal. So these are some of the basic highlights. And when if we are allowed to divide, let us say, the policy into two basic major areas of division, school education and higher education, we find that in school education, there is integrated approach, and in higher education, there is approach towards originality and integrated development of personality and giving scope of various kinds of combination of subjects. So these are some of the basic guidelines we find. And of course, there is one phrase every time used in this policy is light but tight. This is the philosophy. Light but tight here wants to indicate that there will be limited number of regulations. As I understand, light means there will be limited number of regulation, not the avalanche of regulation. But whatever regulations are there, you have to follow that. But within the allowed ridge line, the width of the ridge line would be defined by perhaps regulators, but within that you have a lot of flexibility. And that's why it also indicates that within the given framework, different institutions in different geographical regions within India would be allowed to excel differently, because what is excellence in, let us say, in one part of the country, exactly the same factor may not be able to contribute towards excellence. Because let us say, if we are operating in an educational institution in desert area or forest area or plain area or hilly area, all kinds of, let us say, indigenous and homegrown local issues have been allowed to take place, to be considered, and perhaps it will allow to excel in your own way. These are some of the basic highlights I find. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sir, I wanted to understand, since we were discussing about this multidisciplinary approach you were mentioning in your talk right now. So policy focuses on making higher education multidisciplinary. But isn't having specialization good from students and employers' perspective both? As businesses, we do require multitaskers, but the need for specialized people is also growing. So what is your observation in that front?
Fine. I would like to say that a structure should be broad-based, and later on the structure has to focus on certain issue. See, I also studied history in my school, but because we had all subjects available only up to class 7th, and from class 8th we had to choose between science and art. So once, let us say, a student like me, who was supposed to be a fairly good student, either we chose science because of my interest, or there was a pressure from society that if you are a good student, you must choose science. Very typical, unusual kind of concept, misplaced concept. It took me around, I will tell you later on, why it took me around 15 years to clearly understand the difference between science and art. And when I had chosen the difference between science and art, actually I was not knowing what is science, what is art. I was only knowing that not only students, parents, society, school, teachers, they all expect that if you are a fairly good student, you should go towards science. Very typical, unusual, misplaced kind of concept.
Right.
But you see, when we have broad-based understanding, that on that is they built specialization. For example, let us say, suppose I am destined to become a great botanist, but I have also broad base of history or geography or sociology or political science. And if I'm able to create analogy between botany and a history of that place, geography of that place, sociology of that place, it will be a wonderful idea. For example, as a behavioral scientist, I use sometimes examples in my classes of behavior, example taken from physics, because I have certain science base, and then I develop into social science and management. For example, I always say that third law of Newton applies in the world of human relation. But if human being transcends that third law of Newton, it is more dignified for you and me. What is third law of Newton? It is coming from physics. Every action has its own, has its equal and opposite reaction. So there will be reaction. If you love me, in general, I will love you. If you give a wave of hate towards me, disliking towards me, I perhaps start disliking you also. But I say that transcend from this third law of Newton. Because what applies in the world of matter might apply to the world of human being. But unless human being transcends from the rule of matter, human being is worth not to be called as human beings. We cannot be just material. So, broad-based varieties of subjects, and then developing to specialize. So I would like to say it is not the age of jack of all trades and master of none, but this is age of jack of all trades and master of some. And if master of some is not a possibility, then at least jack of various trades and master of one. But if I only develop in one kind of system with one kind of subject, you see, typically I study only physics, chemistry, and mathematics and engineering, and nothing I am getting exposed to, I'll feel one who is not capable of becoming an engineer is not worth living.
Right.
And one thing more I would like to add here. Science and art are not two different things. It took me 15 years to understand once I cleared my matriculation. Science is like a tree, and art is like the flowering and fruition on that tree. So art is flowering and fruition on the tree of science. Without tree, there would not be flower and fruition. So without science, art will not be dignified. But without art flourishing at the tree of science, the tree of science will not be beautified. Science is like climbing a hill, because you have to maintain center of gravity rule and law, and if your shoes have proper friction, then only you can climb better. Or if there is no oxygen or very sparse oxygen at the top of the hill, you should take a cylinder also. These are all signs of climbing mountain. But once you are at the top of mountain and you see the other side of the scenery of the mountain, which you had never seen, and then a wow of a poetic heart arises. Wow, what is a scene? And you start writing poetry. Your heart gets filled with poem. That is art. So science and art basically both are needed. And I would like to place art at the top of the science, because ultimately the purpose of physics and chemistry and botany and zoology and geology is to create better world and have a wholesome life and creating aesthetic value in life. So these are some of the approaches, and that's why you see, third year, if you have completed in graduation, you can be out and you are a graduate. But now if you want to focus on a particular subject, stay in the graduation stage and do the fourth year, and that research stage will take you towards further specialization. And if you happen to do PG and research, then further 5 or 6 years you are diving deeper into that one dimension. But before that, if you have a broad base, you see, if a tripod has a broad base, if a picture has a broad base things, they have better sense of gravity and stability. That is the point. And you see, education is not to give you first job. Education is a lifetime changer. It is a leveler. So education must be able to help me, to guide me in my 20s when I'm getting educated, in 30s, in 40s, in 50s, in 60s. Something I studied in the school and college should remind me when I have entered 70s that these are the life lessons, because lesson for living is important, but lesson for life is also important.
Wonderful, sir. Excellent points there. Excellent points there. I'll take it forward from there only, sir. As you suggested on the broad base and integration of science and art, now let me take it further down to research. So what is your perspective, sir? Why is India lagging in research right now? And with this new changes of multidisciplinary approach, having many streams intermingled together, multiple entry and exit points, would this policy help in improving the research status of India?
Policy is indicating towards that. But you see, we have to again sit together and think about originality in research. See, a few things I would highlight here. In this present policy, MPhil, a course known as MPhil, a program, MPhil is out of the scene now. New introduction is 4th year of graduation, even in case of social science or any subject that you choose. So, MPhil used to be a bridge course between post-graduation and PhD. And now a research orientation is being pushed, or you are being invited towards research at the end of the graduation itself. So early seed sown is better. So I find 4th year graduation is a better proposition than MPhil, because even in our time when we were doing our PG, there was scope to go to MPhil. But we chose not to go to MPhil because MPhil was never compulsory. So this is one change. But your question was different, that how we can boost research. So this is one thing, but for boosting research, some of the guidelines given in black and white on paper will never suffice. You see, what is happening now? Research parameters are being set elsewhere. We work accordingly, fitting into the frame created by someone else. Whereas India, which was known as Vishwaguru, and it is custodian of subjective knowledge. Knowledge about human being is still today mostly available on Indian soil. You see, you and me should not keep gaga about being Indian only because by chance we are born in India. You were never asked where you would like to be born, either in Mexico or New Zealand or in India. You are just born in India. So some persons think that because I am Indian, I have right to say that India is great. But one thing I would say humbly, India is great because not because I am born here. India is great because, not by chance, but maybe by God's design. It is custodian of world wisdom. Please see that when most of the part of the world, most of the human beings in different parts of the world, when they were struggling for the first ray of civilization, we had the best literature already available. And those literature are still best today in the world. Let us say I'm talking about Upanishad. Upanishadic wisdom, which started flourishing almost around 1,500 years before Christ. And we have that world wisdom available. It is our duty to share that wisdom, of course, in the language understood by all. You see, the present day research methodology is a language which is generally understood by everyone. But our Upanishadic Rishi, they wrote from their own level of enlightenment. And I should not be misunderstood, but these literature full of wisdom, they have been written by keeping the level of consciousness at the level of the writer. Right. But a good writing is that when you come down to the level of the reader. And you are a good speaker when you come down to the level of a listener. Those days are gone. When I was a student in 1980s, when a professor would speak in English, and if you do not understand anything, he or she used to be the best professor, who is compelling you to turn the pages of dictionary after each sentence. But those days are gone. After 1992, 1994, when a convention took place by linguists, and it was decided that language should be understood by listener, and simpler language is better language. Those days are gone. That complex language is better language. So what we have to do, we have to talk in the language of the listener, whatever the world might appreciate or will understand. So using methodology as it is universally accepted, but bringing our own wisdom, that kind of research is needed. But what is happening now, we are also taking the framework, we are also taking the variable, we are only changing somewhere Robert to Raju, and it becomes the Indian case. No, it will not be sufficient that we take some case where Robert is replaced by Raju or Stephanie is replaced by Smita, and it becomes Indian knowledge. This kind of superfluous and say working on the layer or surface will not work. We have to go deeper into that, and that's why research which we have to develop has to be connected with the reality around. And if we are able to share the reality around us, the whole world in their language, I think we will do some genuine work. Otherwise, just adopting the framework or adopting the list or the ranking of the journal, etc. That's fine, nothing wrong in that. But that's why we are not earning any name and fame in research, because best imitator is only best imitator. They are not originator. These are the challenges, I think, in the field of research.
Right. Wonderful, sir. You used a phrase here, framework built by someone else. I'll take this phrase and I'll use it from the perspective of a regulator, sir. Framework built by someone else. Mm-hmm. Sir, what role should a regulator play for higher education institutes? Policy speaks about setting up a single regulator. Do you think this change will help HEIs, higher education institutes?
Fine. I would like to add one more thing. Framework made by someone else, I meant to say it is also a regulator, and secondly, it is also accreditation agencies, because we have to benchmark ourselves, and for benchmark criteria is there, and it is easier to fit into certain scheme already declared. It is more easier, but it is more difficult to struggle and find out the way, in what way an individual or a group of individual or that particular student or this particular subject can be given more grace and gravity and profundity. You see, if you see the atmosphere created as we study in the stories of Ramayana, that what kind of environment Gurukul used to create, and there was not such written framework by any regulator or accreditation agency. Vasisht was not handed over perhaps any regulator. He was his own regulator. See, beautiful philosophy says about nurturing mankind, especially in educational institutions, that a pitcher maker, a kumbhakar jisko kehte hain, kumbhakar, who manufactures pitcher, that person holds the pitcher from inside gently, but keeps on hammering it to give shape a bit ruthlessly. So even in the Gurukul of Vasisht used to be hard taskmaster, but if you are only surrounded by a hard taskmaster for 24 hours, you will not survive and you will not excel as a human being. You also need bhavana, you also need flourishing of heart, not only developing of mind. And then in the evening, the consort of Vasisht, Arundhati ji, used to give motherly love to all the students. So basically, the job of a teacher is like a kumbhakar, who should hold the students gently from inside, but keep on hammering, and rules and regulations and some kind of, let us say, manufactured or artificial anger also needed some time. Nothing doing, you have to do it, but loving from heart. That's why it is said, nowhere it is written, in no policy it will be written, but every teacher should be like preferably like a coconut, appearing hard from outside, but soft from inside. Head from outside. HOD means head of department. HOD should be head of department from outside, but from inside, another kind of HOD. HOD, heart of department. If head of department or only head of department, it is partial personality, befitting to be head. But if you are head and heart, both of the department, then you are the wholesome kind of so-called head of the department. And that's why regulators, sorry, regulators would be one. First, I should decipher it. It is not that regulator is only one. Yeah, for benchmarking, regulator will be one. But there is another body which will help you to nurture your syllabi. There is another body which would help you to have funding for right kind of activity, isn't it? For example, University Grant Commission, a higher education grant commission, something like that. It will be replaced by that nomenclature. So funding agency is different. Syllabus developing agency is different. But National Agency of Accreditation, measuring your level of growth, that agency is different. But regulator, which will say, that is singular now. Earlier it used to be multiple regulator. And that regulator would say that, hey, you have to be fitting and befitting to these criteria prescribed to you. That we were discussing about light but tight. Whatever we will decide, you have to follow the regulator. Single regulator actually would help to universalize and standardize the education. That is expected. That we mean by single regulator. So single regulator, but three different supporting rules, three different agencies in supporting role. One is saying do it, and three are saying we are here to help you to do it. One through accreditation, and one through funding, and one through developing your academic curricula. So there are multiple agencies, but regulator is one. Controller is one, three are supporting role. And one controller is better to standardize and universalize the knowledge within India in a proper way. And when I said that by someone else, regulator is not someone else, because we ourselves will decide, because we are ourselves in the role of regulator. We means not me, but our own, let us say, thinkers within India. But when we talk about, let us say, accreditation agency, I always suggest to academic institutions and suggest to myself also that accreditation agencies' framework are only a guideline. And if we are worse teachers, we should not only abide by them or follow them. They are meant to be transcended. They are meant to be to go beyond. They are just saying, they are just putting, let us say, when you go for high jump, they're putting the bar at the level of 5 feet, simply saying at least jump at this level. But it does not mean we should keep jumping only for 5 feet. We should jump for more. So unless we transcend those accreditation agencies' framework, there is no charm in academics. So we should not actually live with fill up the blanks kind of attitude. This much has been said for teaching, so only that much. This much has been said for research, only that much. If we are just filling the blanks, then we are perhaps not fully enjoying this life of academics. That I need to say.
Right, right. So you mentioned, sir, that academicians should go beyond what is specified by accreditation bodies. I'll take this point further, and the policy suggests that more autonomy should be given to faculty and institutes. How will this be different from what is happening right now in institutes, sir, and especially the private B schools of India? And does this actually make any difference to the private B schools? Giving more autonomy to the faculty and institutes.
We have to go a long way, because autonomy or freedom basically is earned. Freedom is neither to be demanded, or freedom neither can be forcibly given. Freedom cannot be given to ineligible person or ineligible institution. There is concept of supatra and kupatra. So if you give freedom to someone who is not worth getting freedom, then how the person will use freedom. But yes, in education, if you want to flourish, there is no other way than freedom. See, what do you mean by freedom? If you keep your basics right as given by accreditation agency, and then you will be allowed to flourish in your own way. That's the kind of autonomy is being talked about in this new education policy. But let us go beyond what is written in the policy, because we should read the lines of the policy, but we should also read between the lines of the policy. And even now, certain autonomy is available, especially in good institutions. For example, if you are working in one shade of management, for example, a physics professor is not dealing with all dimensions of physics at higher level, of course. Someone is more expert of magnetism, someone is champion of heat, someone is champion of sound, someone is champion of physics, someone is champion of astrophysics. So I am a physics professor does not mean I am champion of all dimensions of physics. Today, I claim that I am a teacher of management. I am not operating in all dimensions of management. At least if you see any B schools faculty list, you will find they are listed within 10 or 11 different areas. These areas are different shades. Within that shade, you are allowed to operate. Within that shade, there are various shades of research. Because one broad shade of teaching, it means there are 100 other penumbras and sub-shades for research. And even today in good institutions, you are allowed to do research in your area of interest, where your heart call is there. जहाँ दिल की पुकार है वहाँ दिमाग लगा के research करिए. This is expected. Autonomy is there. But at the level of institution, when we talk about autonomy, only certain institutions, those who fill minimum criteria, can be allowed to work with more autonomy. But those institutions which are still struggling to keep their basics intact or right, how they can be given autonomy? They have to be under close supervision. It is just like this. Sanskrit quote says, Prapte tu sorashe varse, putram mitram samacharet. When your child has become 16 years old, treat that child as your friend. But 16 is an indicator. It cannot be just taken as something written on the stone, because some persons, they become mature at the age of 14 only. Generally at 16, that's why quotation is there. But some do not mature at the age of 30 also. So what you will do? They have to be controlled. That's why autonomy is needed, but only when basics are intact. And that's why now new education policy is saying that even today we are talking about greater autonomy, and now education policy is saying that colleges will be allowed to operate at autonomous level. But those colleges have to slowly start behaving like or appearing like a universal system and taking a shape of a kind of university. Then only we can allow autonomy.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. So speaking on the basics, sir, as you suggested, policy speaks about inviting foreign universities in India as well. So what do you think? Would this create more opportunity and options for Indian students? Or would this create more stiff competition for Indian universities also? What is your point of view in regards to foreign universities invited to India, please?
I think whatever two reasons you listed, inviting foreign universities, if they create these two situations happening as you narrated, I think that will be desirable. Because you see, developing indigenous or localization, what we are talking about, let us say now, does not mean that close the door and become a mohalla level champion. Now, focusing on local does not mean that only play local level cricket and do not go for state level cricket, Ranji cricket and test match and international matches. It is saying that create world level institutions, create world level thoughts, create world level ideas, create world level pedagogy and operate at local level. And first deserve. And then a pulling factor will start working and foreign universities may come closer to you. Foreign students may like to get admitted in your colleges. Otherwise, you cannot forcibly go to a Romanian or to a Mexican or to an American, come here. They will not come like that. So what is my understanding? The basic spirit, well, everything cannot be captured by word. Word is more grosser than spirit. And whatever is more subtler is every time more powerful than what is grosser. And that's why the spirit says, be word level. And create an environment that you become a custodian of universalization of education. And universalization means students from universe should come to join your college. That is one. So if we invite foreign universities, first of all, we have to see also that appropriate invitation or appropriate persons or institutions we should join hand with. Right. Because not only education in India has become commercialized, education elsewhere also has become commercialized. And when we are talking ourselves about decommercializing our education system, we should also be careful that those who are only having commercial mind behind opening education institution in foreign country should not find them as an opportunity now to come and invest in India or join hands with India. We should choose right partner. We should create that level of education, dissemination of knowledge, creation of knowledge, assimilation of knowledge. Our education policy many times talks about Nalanda, Takshashila, and other universities. So we should be able to go to that level. One is called push factor. One is called pull factor. We have to create pull factor. You know, in physics, pulling is easier than pushing. And great leaders also pull, they do not push. A person at highest level of the organization, if he has pulling power, becomes champion as a leader. If only keeps pushing based on the authority, does not work. So this is what I understand by opening doors for foreign universities.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let me connect this foreign universities and commercialization, which you mentioned, sir, to the gross enrollment ratio, GER. So they are suggesting that gross enrollment ratio, they are planning to reach to 50%. Is there also a downside to this? We already have seen reports where it suggests that over 80% of engineers are unemployable in India. Are unemployable, 80%. With this new policy, we are for sure ensuring that the GER is improved to 50%. But do you see some signs of improving the employment ratio also with the changes suggested?
Actually, we have to be quantity oriented without losing the sight of quality. And in Sanskrit, there are poetic two words, very poetic, parimanatmak, gunatmak. In English, quantitative, qualitative. So GER is talking about quantitative. Let us say taking a jump of, let us say, from 26 or 27% to 50%. And this will also take time. It will take around 1 decade to reach to that level. And not only we should stop at 50%, we should go beyond. But coming to your question, that when already 80% of engineers are not employable, and some time back I had also read in one newspaper that 72% of our MBAs also, they need to tone up their skill before being positively considered by future employers, even at the management training level. That is actually talking about qualitative dimension. Khana purti, from this mentality we have to get rid of. Teach so many subjects, give them credit, let them pass, let everybody become postgraduate. I would like to say one thing here which is not written clearly in this, and I don't know if any future policy it will be written, but based on my experience, I would like to say, one thing it missed, somewhere it should have been mentioned, I wish, that our education at graduation level should get more dignified, so much dignified that chosen students, they only think in terms of going to post-graduation. Otherwise, majority should say, enough I have got. I am not only saturated but satisfied, fully drenched with knowledge. Our graduation level study should have been more dignified. When first of all, in school days, I used to play cricket. I played cricket to certain level, university level and on railway divisional level also. And when I came to know that, oh, Sunil Gavaskar is economics honors. Oh my God. In 1973, I was in class 8th. I came to know that Sunil Gavaskar is economics honors. We were all very happy, so much educated. Now, some honors student comes to say, don't sit for me. Postgraduate. We don't give a chair to honors graduate nowadays. Forget about that. Even becoming PG is not enough. Becoming PhD is not enough. My point is that if graduation level study is dignified and post-graduation is available only for those, or only they will be getting attracted to PG or research, who have to go for higher education or research career or for some other level of studies, then things could have been better. So now we see that fourth year has been added, but as you said, somewhere what we achieved and somewhere did we miss something? I think one thing which we missed, at least one sentence mentioning somewhere, would have given more impetus to that spirit that our graduation level study will be more dignified, enough dignified. One should not feel anything deprived of if you have not gone to PG studies. That kind of study, that kind of education system, I think, will do better.
Sir, coming that from an academic leader of post-graduation institute like you is really appreciable, what you just mentioned. Thank you so much for that. So I'll come down to my last question of the session, sir. What are the challenges you foresee in implementing this policy in regards to the Indian ecosystem? What are the challenges you see in implementing this policy?
You see, university stands for universalization. Institutions have to be world class. Elementary education has to be root nurturer. Every level of education has its own challenge. Primary school teachers, everyone cannot become successful in that field. It requires different kind of skill and different kind of commitment. And that is the time when you give the real education to students. On 5th September, when Teachers' Day comes, you remember college teachers later, but you start remembering primary teachers right in the morning. Am I right? So, at every level there is different kinds of opportunities, different kinds of challenge. Actually, primary and secondary and pre-graduation and graduation, they are into different stages, but we have arranged the status of these institutions in vertical arrangement. Primary school, then higher level is, of course, we say higher level classes are there, but unless in our mental framework we arrange them in horizontal arrangement, that though class 7th is senior than class 5th, but as far as governance is concerned, arrangement is horizontal. Everything is at the same plane. And as much dignity we give to university professor, same dignity should go to school teachers, because in fact we are in horizontal arrangement. I don't know when society met a vertical arrangement. That is wrong. Other challenge is we should give up a way which we have become champion of, finding shortcut in everything. This is against the grain of any dignified person. Suppose PhD is needed for a certain position, do PhD anyhow. Suppose MBA is needed for a certain job, do MBA anyhow. Matriculation is needed, do it anyhow. Now this anyhow, finding shortcut will not work. There is a couplet which says, "Aadmi fitratan fasadi hai." a human being is by nature notoriously intelligent. We should be humbly intelligent, not notoriously intelligent. We should stop finding shortcut to anything. And you know that when a student studies his or her post-graduation or graduation or PhD through a shortcut, by the time the candidate is in mid-30s, starts feeling the depletion because the material which will take him to still higher level, that is not available. And if I have taken shortcut at any stage in my life, it will start telling upon at any other stage in the life. None of your work goes without giving result. If you have taken shortcut, your life journey will deceive you at one point of time. So we should always start actually injecting this in the mind of students. Shortcut never pays. It never pays. That's one. And second one is that I think anywhere this nepotism must go. And if I'm sitting in the interview board and my brother is appearing in the interview, if I'm able to be objective, that is my test of objectivity. That is my test of impartiality. Our IQ should be high, but IQ does not mean only intelligence quotient. It also means impartiality quotient. The word is very popular, but anyway, it should be made popular. IQ, your IQ should be higher. Impartiality quotient should be higher. For you, everybody is brother and sister. And wherever the most suitable candidate is there, take him or her, not by any arrangement. This is another thing. Next point is that for making it successful at implementation level, there has to be a strong criteria with allowed flexibility, as it is talking about already in different language. But without that criteria, no one will be allowed to go to the next level of accreditation. At one stage, I have seen in my own life, even passing out exam with second class used to be a dignified thing. Now every university is having A+ ranking by our own sister institutions, which are accreditation agency or ranking agency. Every university is A+. India have already emerged as Vishwaguru. Why not C grade is also dignified? Still today, there are many management students I know. If you pass with B grade, enough. You are highly dignified. Everybody cannot pass with overall A grade. In IIMs, everyone cannot pass. Only few percentages can pass, or in MDI also. Here, B is sufficient, but because of our credibility of MDI, our B is dignified. But I find at various other levels that unless you are A, you cannot show your face in the mirror. B is also sufficient. Sometimes C is also sufficient. And one thing here I'd like to add, which is very important. Now we are talking about making multi-subject colleges. And since I have worked in the university system also, institute system also, I find one strength with university system that as a teacher of management, I was surrounded by my colleagues who are from the field of sociology, ancient history, physics, Hindi, Sanskrit, economics, political science. But when I joined institute system in 1999, since then I'm in institute system, it has its own advantage because it is better funded, better environment, and let us say higher ranked students come here. But I miss those environment that, well, my all colleagues are only management experts. Hardly they are, on the name of diversification, some of the colleagues are finance management professor, some are marketing management, some are HR management, some are production management, and some are economics or strategic management or IT management. But where are those my colleagues who are from geography or history or Hindi or sociology or physics or political science or anthropology? That's why you see in foreign universities, if you wanted to excel your management department, it was university department which started moving towards excellence. But in India, though I have worked in NITI and IIM system, and still my principal employer is IIM Indore, but I would like to say why we did not allow universities Department of Management to flourish. We did not allow. I want to say clearly, the soul of higher education in India is set of state universities. We have central universities, we have IIMs, we have IITs, we have AIMS. We need such institutions. We need more in numbers perhaps. But why we should not aim towards also helping flourishing engineering department of a particular state university which is languishing, or medical department which is languishing, or management department. You see in early 90s, in the top 20 management colleges, at least 4 or 5 used to be university department MBA. But today you show me in the top 20 any one, maybe 1 or 2, Delhi and Mumbai figuring, but show me the third. Very difficult. So I would like to say we need to further understand that the soul of higher education is state university, because it is catering the need of mass and majority. Central universities are few and center of excellence are few, national institutes are few. I think we should look towards this. So 2 sentences perhaps we missed in this national education policy. I'm not saying that the sentence must have been there. A spirit may be there. I wish they are there. That is, state university should be the focal point again. And secondly, I had said you about one missing point. Fine.
Wonderful. So soul of higher education is in state universities. And that brings me...
In India.
In India.
Yeah.
Right.
Please don't misunderstand it.
Right.
Apart from helping IIM, IIT, AIMS, all these to flourish, unless we look especially towards the state universities, only these islands will not be helped to pull the entire responsibilities of Indian higher education's quality. That is the point I'm making. That's why state university need to be focused.
Wonderful. And that brings me to the end of the session today. A very big thank you to you, sir, for taking out time and speaking to us today and sharing your views on the new education policy. It has really helped us understand various aspects in detail and would be very beneficial for the business school community pan India. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.